everybody, and welcome to another Florida-friendly landscaping educational program. Today, I am with my partner in education, Dr. William Lester. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Lily. How are you?
I'm great. We are finally back at work after another, one of those storm scares that people live with here in Florida. We were very, very fortunate in that here in Hernando, we were not really affected much at all by Hurricane Ian. The same cannot be said for people in our southern counties, so our hearts do go out to them. In the meantime, we need to move forward. We did, I know, especially Dr. Lester there, he continued working all through the hurricane. I did some work. We did the virtual plant clinic. But this class had to be postponed from last Wednesday. So here we are doing it on a special day on a Monday, a look at natural products for pest control.
There you go.
There we go. And I'm Lily Browning. I work for Hernando County Utilities. I am the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program Coordinator here for Hernando County Utilities. And Dr. Lester is the Urban Horticulture Agent for the University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences at Hernando County. And here are our emails. Mine is LillyB, LILLYB at hernandocounty.us. I'll be glad to send you a PDF copy of this PowerPoint if you email me after the class. And all the really hard questions go to wlester@ufl.edu. These are the 9 principles of Florida-friendly landscaping. And the ones we are covering today is, if I can make it work, there we go. Principle number 6, managing yard pests responsibly. If you look back on my Facebook or on Hernando County Government YouTube, you can go to part 1 of this very same class. Today we're covering part 2. And I'm just going to review a little bit quickly what we learned in part 1, just general principles, because it was so long ago, but also, I mean, this applies to, these natural products as well as any other. The University of Florida always recommends integrated pest management when it comes to any type of pest control. This is recommended for homeowners. This is recommended for commercial applicators. Hernando County Mosquito Control follows this pattern here. And basically we follow this pyramid. And it starts from the bottom because that is the widest, the widest part of the pyramid. So these are, what you do via these steps going up. Prevention, cultural control, that means everything around that plant, cleaning up dead branches, all those kind of, airflow. It just, refers to a lot of things around there. Physical and mechanical control. That could mean smashing the bug with your foot. That could mean throwing the bug over into your neighbor's yard, which is Dr. Lester's favorite method. It could mean, even when we're talking about weeds, blocking out weeds with mulch or something else like that. Biological control, we're going to get into a lot of that in this part 2 of this program. The very last thing you want to even think about doing is picking up a chemical for the control of your problem. And there's a lot of research that needs to go into what you're doing before you pick up that chemical. You got to find out what the problem is before you treat it. You wouldn't let the doctor say, well, we'll try this, see if it works. I don't know what's wrong with you, but here, take this. But we try to treat our plants and insects that way. So a lot of research before you pick up a chemical. And here we're talking about what they refer to as natural products, which can be somewhat of a tricky word. I mean, lots of, poisons come from nature. So, but what we consider natural, sometimes organic products, the things we need to consider, their general traits are that they usually break down quickly, which is good for your non-target organisms, but it could mean repeat applications. They usually work very quickly. They have low toxicity and phytotoxicity. Would you like to tell us what phytotoxicity means, Dr. Lester?
Yes, basically that's sunburn. So if you go to the beach and
that's what the word means, yes.
if you go to the beach and cover yourself with baby oil and lay out in the sun all day, you're pretty much going to fry. And the same thing can happen to your plants. Certain pesticides, certain chemicals, anything that contains any kind of oil on a very sunny, very hot day can burn your plant's leaves. It intensifies the light, the sunlight that's hitting it, and damages the leaf. So you don't want to use something that's going to have a phytotoxic effect.
Okay. Other considerations when we talk about these natural products are the cost. Sometimes they can be quite expensive. Availability, they're not always that easy to find. Are they state registered? Sometimes, people just throw things together and they may not be registered as a pesticide. And that is something, really to consider, as well as the Environmental Protection Agency may not have reviewed that product that you're dealing with. Having said all that, and you saw this in the last one, and this is not the last time you're going to see it in this program. This is the very first thing we want you to remember and take home with you. The label is the law. They're not suggestions on those labels on any kind of product that you use around your yard. Not only is it the law, so if you are using it not exactly the way that it says to, you could be breaking the law. It is also very science-based, and if you deviate from what it says, you could cause more damage than what you already have. So be very, very conscious about following that label. Having said all that, we're going to move on with Dr. Lester to these natural products. And first we're going to start with mineral insecticides. Okay, Dr. Lester.
Okay, one very commonly used mineral insecticide or pesticide is diatomaceous earth. I know diatomaceous earth can be used in swimming pools in the filter, but that's not the kind of diatomaceous earth that you're going to use out in the yard. People who own and raise chickens can use it, and I am not the livestock expert. I just know that you can dust the chickens with it and it helps to keep lice and other bugs off of them. You can get bags of diatomaceous earth and it looks just like talcum powder. What it is, it's microscopic remains, the tiny little shells of diatoms, which are single-celled aquatic algae. They take it, grind it up into a powder, so the powder looks just like talcum powder to you or me. But if you're a very, very tiny little insect, the broken up shells look like pieces of glass. So it can injure small insects and kill small insects by scraping on their body, and it basically scrapes them, and then they lose water and lose oils and they dehydrate and die. It can be used indoors. You always want to read the label and you want to make sure that you're getting the correct diatomaceous earth for what you're trying to accomplish. It can be used indoors. It can be used outdoors also. The problem is this is a very fine powder. So number one, you don't want to breathe it in. It can be very dangerous if you breathe it in or get it all over yourself. You need to wear the probably a face mask. We still have them from COVID. I'm sure you have one somewhere, and gloves. And if you use it outdoors, the first time it rains or you irrigate, it's all washed away. So it doesn't last very long outdoors. As far as garden pest control, I've never seen it work very well. It tends to work a little bit more as a preventative. If you put it out there, it might help to reduce populations of aphids, spider mites, things like that, but it's not going to give you an awful lot of control. So honestly, I've never recommended diatomaceous earth for any outdoor purposes very often, although it is out there and it's worth trying. A lot of people use it. And if you apply correctly, being careful not to breathe it in or get it all over yourself, it's very safe once it's down for you, your pets, the neighbors, everybody else.
So if you tried to use it, say, as a powder around your pet's outdoor area for flea prevention, in the middle of summer in Florida, it's just going to clump together and wash away, most likely.
Sure, the first afternoon thunderstorm is going to be washed away.
Yeah, and even if it hasn't rained, our humidity, it may make it not, not as, it would start to clump together, get wet, and, so. And be very, very, very careful. As he already said, the full grade is very dangerous to humans and pets. Do not make the mistake of getting that. You have to get the food grade or the natural. And some people do use it. They powder their pets and stuff with it. Just make sure you also somehow or another protect them from the fine granules, that they could inhale.
Yeah, make sure the product you're using is labeled to be used on pets.
Correct. Okay, more mineral insecticides. I found this very fascinating. This Olin Clay, which is aluminum silicate. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, kaolin has been around for a number of years, and kaolin is a type of clay. So it's actually dug up out of the ground, and it's when you dry this clay out, it turns to a powder. And it's used a lot and has been used for a number of years on different fruit crops. So let's say you have a peach tree, and your peach tree blooms in the spring, you get peaches on it. Now you have these beautiful developing peaches. Insects will see the peaches, they'll smell the peaches, they'll land on the peaches, and they'll drill holes in the peaches and ruin them for you. So what you do is you could take kaolin clay, mix it up with water and a pump sprayer, and spray it on the tree, and the whole tree looks like the leaf on the left, kind of a tannish gray color. And that's what the leaves look like, that's what the fruit looks like. Think of it as you're hiding your plant from the insects. Now the insects can't see it, they can't smell it because it's covered with clay. It doesn't hurt the plant. It does leave a powdery white film, which is what you want to happen, because that's what's, kind of deceiving the insects so they can't see it. It also provides a nice barrier against sun scorch. They use it sometimes for newly planted trees in a very sunny spot. They're afraid of the newly planted trees getting sunburned. So if you spray it with kaolin clay, it helps to prevent sunburn also. It can be, depending on what kind of insects are on the plant when you spray it on, it could be damaging or fatal to those insects when you spray it. A problem with this is, of course, the first time it rains, it all washes off and the fruits and the leaves are clean once again, and you're going to have to reapply it. But they have found for certain crops and certain circumstances, this can be a very, very effective, generally short-term control. So you're not going to use this year-round on a peach tree, just for that time when you're trying to protect the peaches. What else? They're looking at, they've done research using this on citrus also to help kind of hide it from the Asian citrusillid, the insects that spread greening. So it can be an effective tool in your toolbox. I've never personally used it, so I can go ahead and share that. I don't know personally how well it works.
It's an invisibility cloak.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, sulfur. That's been used since forever.
Yes, there's certain pest controls, things like sulfur, things like copper as a fungicide. They are mined, they're natural earth elements, they're mined out of the ground. So sulfur goes all the way back to the Roman times. Now you can still buy it. You can get it as a powder, you can get it as a liquid. You can put it on as a powder. You can mix the powder with water and spray it on. You take a liquid and spray it on. It's used mostly for disease control. It is a fairly effective fungicide, which means it's going to help your plants not to get a fungal problem. It also works very, very well on spider mites. And it's a very good control that's been used on spider mites for hundreds and hundreds of years at this point. It can kill a wide variety of different insects, so it could be harmful to the beneficial insects that are on your plants at the time when you spray it. I've honestly never used sulfur either. I know it's a very, very old control. You can still find it at lawn and garden places and big box stores. This is one of those things that you don't want to apply when it gets very, very hot and sunny in the summer. It might be phytotoxic or damage your plant's leaves. And you don't want to be mixing it with other sprays like oils because it might not play well. Something, I'll go ahead and mention this now. When you're applying any kind of liquid fertilizer, insecticide, pesticide, fungicide, whatever it might be, sometimes you can mix more than one thing together in the pump sprayer and apply it all at once. Other times, product A and product B don't play well together, and when you mix them together, they generally don't explode. You don't have to worry about a nuclear explosion in your backyard. But what happens is they'll bind together, and now you end up with solid crystals at the bottom, or they don't work. They just don't play well together. So sulfur is one of those things that doesn't play well with other things. You have to be very careful, and if you need be, you can contact us to find out what things play well with other things. There are products that they're starting to put combination things together, like weed killers, herbicides, where they put 2 or 3 different herbicides together in one jug. So you spray once and you cover it with 3 different products. And there's insecticides that can be mixed with occasionally fertilizers and fungicides and other things. So when you start mixing products together, you have to be very careful.
Okay, and as with all, if you're using it as a fungicide, interesting that this product has roses on the label, because roses in Florida, the hybrid teas, do tend to pick up every fungus they can possibly find. Just remember that fungicides prevent, they don't cure. So.
Exactly. If your plant has a huge fungus problem and all the leaves have spots and all the leaves are falling off, a fungicide will not fix those leaves. You have to apply a fungicide before you have an outbreak of a fungus problem. If you do that, they can be very effective or very helpful.
Okay. Iron phosphate as slug and snail baits.
Okay. I'm going to have to plug my computer in a moment. I'm having a issue with my outlet here. So let me go ahead and talk about another mineral insecticide. There are snail controls, iron phosphate, and a few other things that are used to help control snails. They're used as a bait. So you follow the directions and put them out there, and the snails eat them. And after the snails eat them, it kills them. So the 2 main things for snail control is going to be products that contain iron phosphate, which are generally very available to homeowners. You can go to a big box store and find it. It's going to be the only snail control they have on the shelf, but they do carry it. And metaldehyde baits, which I think you have to have a license for.
Okay. So would they work on these giant African land snails that are moving?
Yes, which are a problem in Pasco County now. So
right. Okay.
Okay.
What do you need to fix your?
Yes, if you want to take care of the next slide, I'll be right back.
Sure, I can talk about BT. So we're moving along to microbial insecticides. This is a very fascinating science here where you use actual microbes, which they have, studied and researched, in nature, with all the checks and balances that there are. Insects will respond or held in check by certain microbial attributes, things that are going on. One of them that they have found is very commonly used, Bacillus thuringiensis. Fortunately, you do not have to go to the store and ask for Bacillus thuringiensis. You may ask for BT, something that has BT as its main ingredient. BT, this Bacillus thuringiensis, is a naturally occurring bacterium found in the soil and in fresh water and on plant surfaces. So it contains the resting spores. If you go and find a product with this in it, it will have the resting spores of the BT and the crystalline proteins, which are the toxins that they produce. And what it does is BT works on caterpillars. I think that is their general control, is for caterpillars. It'll bind to their gut receptors and cause them to stop feeding. And that is all they're going to control mosquito larvae as well. There's a certain type of BT, I think it's BTE or something like that, isn't it, Dr. Lester?
Yes, I think so. The BT you use for caterpillars is Parasitic, I think. So it's a slightly different type of BT, because BT is a bacteria.
Right.
And there's slightly different biotypes of that bacteria. One of them is what you're going to find at the stores for caterpillar control. Another one works very well on mosquitoes, and especially mosquito larvae. And there's a third one that works well on certain beetles. But the one that you're mostly going to encounter at the stores is designed and labeled for use on caterpillars.
Right. So it's all in the larval stage, whatever that this treats. But it is rapidly broken down even by sunlight. So you may need frequent applications, but you have to know, the life stages of the insect. You see beetles out there, or you see moths out there, throwing the BT down is not going to be effective against them. And here's the very, very important part, because you've heard what I've been saying. They are effective in, killing off caterpillars. Is that something you want to put around your butterfly garden?
Probably not.
No. So, be very, very careful, even though we kind of get warm, fuzzy feelings about these natural products that we're talking about. We're still talking about insect control. And some of those insects are the beneficials that we want to be around. So, you must be very cautious and very judicious in your use of these things. It is not unusual, and Dr. Lester will tell you, and I've experienced it too, for people to call and complain about the caterpillars on their dill or on their milkweed, even,
Passion vine.
passion vine. That is kind of why you built that butterfly garden. Those caterpillars are going to become butterflies. That seems really, really elementary, but we've gotten that call multiple times, haven't we?
Yes, we have. And you need to think, okay, I have a plant and I have a caterpillar chewing on it. Do I want the butterfly or moth that this caterpillar turns into or not? And BT works really, really well. If you spray it on your milkweed plants, it'll kill the monarch butterfly caterpillars. If you spray it on your tomatoes, it'll kill the tomato hornworm. Obviously, the tomato hornworms you want to get rid of, and the monarch butterfly caterpillars you don't want to get rid of. So make sure that you understand what kind of pest you're dealing with first before you go and start spraying.
All More microbials. This is your favorite, so it's a great time for you to come back.
Spinosad. Yes, Spinosad is another product that is made from a naturally occurring bacteria, and it works very, very well on certain things. With all these different natural pest controls, you have to keep in mind they work really well on certain things and they don't work on others. But Spinosad works very well also on caterpillars, just like BT does. Spinosad works well on leaf miners. Those are the tiny little caterpillars that get inside of a leaf and start making the little squiggly lines on the leaf. And there's really nothing else out there that works well on leaf miners other than Spinosad. Spinosad works great on thrips, and it works on ants also. And there are more and more ant baits and ant controls that are using Spinosad in them, which is a much safer choice than some of the other chemicals that they've used in ant controls before. Because what they do, you know, if you're going to have to spread some kind of granules all over your entire yard, you don't want to be putting down a broad spectrum insecticide that's going to mess things up. You want to put down something specific like ant control that contains Spinosad that's going to kill ants but not disrupt anything else. Works very well on all those different pests, attacks the nervous system, generally very safe for other non-target organisms. But you have to remember, ants are in an order of insects that also include bees. So anything that kills ants will potentially also kill bees, and Spinosad can kill bees. So you have to be careful and use common sense when applying Spinosad. Don't spray it on flowering plants in the middle of the day when bees are out and active. You're going to try to not spray those kind of plants, or spray plants that are not attractive to bees, or at a time of day when the bees are not active at least.
Hymenoptera? That there?
Yes, ma'am. Hymenoptera.
Ooh, I got
Bees
it.
and ants and wasps.
Yay. I pulled that out of the recesses of my brain. Okay. More microbial insecticides here. I'll let you pronounce them.
Boy, and you started pulling out some not commonly used ones. These are used more by commercial growers, and there's a lot of research being done on them. The funny thing is, with insect pests, with a lot of them, there are naturally occurring fungi out there that make them sick and kill them. And what happens is the insect population starts off low in the spring and grows and grows and grows. And by some point in the summer, like for example, whiteflies, you could have billions of whiteflies per square foot. When you get that many of them, a fungus breaks out and they all die and the population crashes, which is great for you, the plant grower, because that's a natural way of taking care of that pest. The problem is when the populations of whiteflies grow really high, they kill your plants. So you want to be able to control them a little bit before the populations get completely out of control. But there are different fungi they're looking at. Burkholderia is a broad group of bacteria that there's a number of different specific types of that bacteria. They found a number of them that work on very specific insects. And the good thing is these things will work very, very well on one small group of insects or one small group of pests and will not hurt anything else. And that's kind of the hallmark of a really good pesticide is specificity. You want it to be very specific to control what you're trying to control without killing everything else on the property. Mm-hmm. Chromobacterium, I'm not even familiar with that one. I know that there are a number of other fungi that they found out in nature, and they've been able to shelf stabilize it, package it, put it in a jug, and you spray it, and you're going to get a fungal outbreak amongst, I know they use it for whiteflies. They have viruses they use on certain invasive plants. A lot of, and this is an area where they're going through a lot of research. They're coming out with a lot of really new, exciting controls for things that are very, very safe to be used.
And I would stay away from the chromobacterium anyway, because it does control broad range. And we want to avoid, that's what we're trying to avoid, is that broad range. Okay, what about parasitic fungi and microsporidia?
Different fungi, things like Bevaria, which is a group of a large group of different fungi. Those are the ones that attack different insects. They can be entomopathogenic. That's the vocabulary word for today, which means it's a pathogen on insects, and they are natural out in the environment. And if you go out and check your plants, and if you're really, really aware of what's going on your plants, sometimes you'll find aphids, whiteflies, other pests in summer, and you look at them, and it's got this white, fuzzy, cottony stuff growing out of them. They've been attacked by a fungus and killed because of it. So it's just like a really huge city. If you pack millions of people in together and you have a really huge population, what happens if a contagious disease breaks out? It spreads far and wide, and a lot of people can catch it. Same thing with insects. You have a huge number of whiteflies on your plant, a fungus breaks out, a virus, a bacteria breaks out, and now a lot of the insects catch it, and a lot of them pass away, and the population just naturally crashes without you doing anything. But now they're starting to be able to identify and take out those different various species of fungi and bacteria and microsporidia and put them in a package where you can use them in specific situations. There are there was a control, a very, very good natural control for mole crickets. And it was so good that after a number of years, they quit making it because nobody was buying it anymore. It had become established in people's fields because mole crickets are a huge problem for ranchers and people with pastures. It's a problem for homeowners with Bahia lawns too.
Yeah.
People quit buying it and they quit making it, and they're looking at maybe having to make it again. So these things can work very, very well.
This is a unpleasant picture here, but
Yes.
entomopathogenic, like you said.
Entomopathogenic nematodes.
Yes.
And that's vocabulary word number 2 for today. Nematodes are microscopic roundworms that live generally in the soil. They also live in water. A few of them can live in plants, like in the stems and leaves, but not many of them. Most of them you're going to run across in the soil. And nematodes run the gamut. A lot of them are very, very beneficial. They eat bacteria, they eat fungi, they help to break down decaying organisms. Some good nematodes are predators and they eat bad nematodes. Bad nematodes are the ones that feed on our plants. Things like root knot nematodes, they damage the roots and they kill your plants. There are other nematodes that prey on insects. So insects that either live on the ground or live part of their life underground can potentially get infected with nematodes, which kill the insect, and then they reproduce inside the insect and the insect passes away, and now a million nematodes come out to go and do that to another insect. They have them and have used them for mole crickets because they live underground. White grubs, which are beetle larvae, they grow up to be June bugs. Most people use the common term June bugs. So some of the different beetle larvae that are really hard to, because think about this. If you have a beetle larva that lives underground and is eating your citrus tree roots, how do you control it? You can't spray the ground. The beetle's underground. It's just kind of laughing at you. But they have identified species of nematodes in 2 different genera, which is genuses, Steinernema and Heterohaptitis. Those are the 2 main ones. And they're always looking at new species that prey on mole crickets, beetle larvae. There's a few other things that you can use them for. And any kind of pest that comes along, they're always looking for a nematode that's going to naturally infect them. Because if you could take that nematode, stabilizes eggs, put it in a jug where it can be mixed up with water and sprayed. That can be a very, very effective control.
So in your college courses, when you were pursuing your doctorate of plant diseases,
Mhm.
did you have classes where you actually practiced pronouncing these words?
No, I'm actually pretty familiar with those two. I did have classes where they put nematodes in a little tray and you had to identify them and then count them. And you know what? They pretty much all look the same. So it's not easy.
We discussed this in part 1 of this series, but I'll let you go ahead again and just, give your opinion about some of these home remedies that people, like to try. They think they want to save money or be, more environmentally friendly. So they go to different Facebook groups or various places on the internet to find, these home cures. And what do you have to say about some of those?
Well, home remedies kind of run the gamut from things that don't really hurt anything, but they're not going to work, all the way up to things that can be very, very dangerous for you and your neighbors and kids and dogs and everybody else, and potentially illegal and legal liability involved in them also. So a lot of people love to use things that they feel if you spray them on plants out in your yard, they're not going to be dangerous, they're not going to be harmful, they're going to be all natural. Things like dish soap, baking soda, urine, mothballs. So going through them, dish soap is basically dish detergent. It works great on pots and pans. Doesn't, if you, and I have to be honest, it will kill small insects. It'll kill spider mites, it'll kill aphids, mealybugs, things like that. Might kill your plants also, because dish detergent can burn through the cuticle or the covering on your plant's leaves, and it can be very damaging to your plants. So dish soap isn't necessarily all natural and all safe. Baking soda is generally very, very safe. It's not harmful. It's not going to kill you. Generally not going to kill your plant. What it is, it's very, very high pH. So if you mix up baking soda, spray it on a plant leaf, it changes the surface of the leaf to very high pH and might discourage fungus, because a fungus isn't going to sprout and grow and infect that leaf if it's very, very high pH on the surface. Not very effective. Generally not harmful, but not very effective. Urine, that's just nasty. We're not going to go there. That might, and you can buy like coyote urine to discourage rabbits and other animals. All those things will work for a little bit. Eventually the rabbits, the deer, the birds will all figure out that there's really not a coyote or not a mountain lion. It's really just the urine, and they're going to go up there and eat your plants eventually anyway. So they're kind of marginally effective. Mothballs. Mothballs are a pesticide. And if I'm looking at the package, I can see the active ingredients. They have precautionary statements, first aid, and directions on the back. Mothballs are to be used on clothes in your cedar closets. For anybody who moved here from up north, Lily's smiling. She knows what a cedar closet is. To help protect those tweed suits that you might have, if anybody has them. Wool. Does anybody own a wool suit anymore? Do they even make them? Maybe over in England, but that's what you're supposed to use them for. If you use them outdoors, it does not work to keep away snakes, mice, rats, whatever else you're trying to use it for. If a neighbor or a child or a pet gets injured or hurt by them, you are legally liable for that if you put the mothballs out. So don't do it. Most of them have, very sketchy effectiveness. Like I said, a lot of them can damage your plants. And in the case of mothballs, you are breaking the law, because it does not say on that package of mothballs, sprinkle these in your attic or underneath your mobile home to keep bad things away. And it doesn't work to do that either.
Oh, and you don't want your ventilation system bringing that through the house either.
If you throw them underneath a structure. If you have a crawl space, you throw them underneath, or if you throw them in your attic, you just created your own homemade gas chamber.
Mm.
And the active ingredient naphthalene, it's when it becomes airborne and you breathe it in, is very, very dangerous to human beings. So don't do it.
As far as when you were talking about the dish soap, if you can possibly find something that is soap, not detergent. They used to have it more readily available. What we discussed in the last one, I said my mother would buy that really cheap pink dish liquid or yellow dish liquid, where we had to struggle to make bubbles with it in the dishwater. You know, that, you know, if you try it with some homemade things, and still is going to have spotty effectiveness, but it's the detergent, the grease fighting attributes in our, you know, normal dish detergent that we have these days. Works great on getting oil off of ducks and, you know, when there's an oil spill in that, but it will also then break down the natural oils in your plant, you know, their waxy cuticle, all those
Exactly.
you want to avoid. So again, I told you, you would see this again. That's the main thing to remember, is that the label is the law. It's not a recipe. It's not, you know, Aunt Jenny's recipe where I'm going to do it up my way to be a little bit different than hers. It is the law to follow as it says to. Here are the resources that we use. We do have some chat questions that I'm going to look at in a moment. I got almost all of this information from a publication called Natural Products for Managing Landscape and Garden Pests in Florida. It is a University of Florida publication. Here is the link, or you can just Google natural products for managing landscapes and put UF after that. Also some other managing pest plants with soaps. They will get much more into the details of what we just discussed. If you are into, you know, organic products, this is where you can find their reviews of the different products from this omri.org, Organic Materials Review Institute. And here's just a blog from a university horticulturist, Home Remedies for Pest Control and / Beware. You know, make the right choices there. We have classes upcoming. We have a class coming up in 2 days because this is a makeup day on Monday. So Wednesday, I have a class. Dr. Lester won't be with me on that one. Fall flower power. So we're gonna, you know, have a nice fun class talking about all those beautiful fall bloomers. And I certainly hope the person in charge of making that class has it finished by then. Don't worry, she will. And then the following Wednesday, I will be at the Spring Hill Library in person talking about a very timely topic: storms and trees. We dodged the bullet this time, but it's a good time to go out in your yard and assess. Like you, Dr. Lester, you went to bed that night thinking about what could I have done different, you know, just in case the big storm came here. There's no guarantee, because we missed this one, that we'll miss the next one. So assessing your landscape is a big part of hurricane prep. So come on out to the Spring Hill Library. If you can't make it, I already did it virtually, and you can find the recording on my Facebook page or Hernando County Government YouTube. October 19th, we'll be together again for Lead Freedom Lawns Ring. That's going to be a fun one, I think. And then another fun one close.
Am I a part of that?
Yeah, you said you were.
Okay. I'll make sure it's on my schedule, so I'll be there.
And you are also part of October 26th, Creepy Crawlies, the Cryptic Lives of Florida Bugs. I was thinking when we were seeing that nematode slide, that needs to be added.
No, it does.
Yes, into this special Halloween week. Here are, the various ways to find information. Our Facebook page, as I mentioned, Hernando County Government YouTube. Go to that YouTube channel. Look for Florida Friendly Landscaping playlist. I've been moved, shoved out of the way from you seeing it right away. So you do have to look at it. Just because all those hurricane announcements, moved me out of the way there. And I do have Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. This class is being recorded and will be available on Facebook, hopefully by this afternoon, depending how long Facebook takes to be able to process it. And then it will be on Hernando County Government YouTube. All my classes end up there. But the gentleman who does that, John, was a little bit preoccupied with a storm last week. So he's always very busy in getting the word out, helping record things for emergency management. So, it's a little bit behind on my classes, but they'll be out there. Let's see what kind of questions we have in the chat.
I can't read the chat.
Okay, I will.
So you can read it. I'm just telling you that I can't see it.
Okay. Margaret wants to know, does kaolin or sulfur interfere with leaf photosynthesis?
Generally, no. Believe it or not, you would think that it would, but that's not a problem. They use it. It's very, very effective on different fruit trees in the spring to keep things off, at least temporarily. So you're not using it all year long. But when you are using it, it really doesn't bother photosynthesis, and it doesn't disrupt the fruit either.
Okay. She also wants to know, do mosquito bits harm people if I use them on my indoor edible plants to control fungus gnats? I think she's talking about the crumbly BT, perhaps.
Correct. And that's a special variety of BT that works against mosquitoes. My guess is that will not work on fungus gnats or shore flies or the little flies that you get around your house plants, especially if they're too wet. So that becomes a problem if you keep the soil too wet. And if you look online, you can get nematodes that you mix with water in around the plant. And if there's any of the shore fly or fungus gnats that are in the soil, they will attack them and kill them.
Interesting. Dawn says that Bonner soap is available at Sprouts. Okay.
Yeah, Bonner soap, and there's a few others. There's one in a red package. Castile soap, I think.
Yes. What about Ivory?
They're not nearly as harmful or dangerous for your plants as a true dish detergent. You'd still want to if you are going to try using that, spray it on just a leaf or two first and wait a day or so, make sure there's no adverse reaction. And those things are just not as effective as a proper insecticidal soap. You're going to get a better outcome with insecticidal soap.
Moving on to that, Anne wants to know what type of soap is used in insecticidal soap.
That's potassium acids of, you had to ask me. It is a very specific soap, and it's not the same soap as you would use to wash pots and pans with.
Okay. And the answer about if somebody's interested in a PDF, email me, LillyB, LILLY, 2 L's in the middle, B at hernandocounty.us, and ask for a PDF, and I will be glad to send you one. Lizette wants to know, is there a good natural product to deter snakes?
No, not that I know of. Nothing that's really effective. There's a million old wives' tales. And unfortunately, that's the main reason why people would put mothballs out in their yard. It doesn't particularly work that I know of. So there is no good snake control. It's best to just ignore the snakes And yeah,
I prefer the snakes because these snakes provide rodent control. So therefore, I'm a live and let live when it comes to snakes. If there was a humongous diamondback rattler in my yard, I would have my husband and a firearm dispatch of such, but generally I try to live and let live when it comes to snakes. Does that
yeah,
also?
they're an important part of the natural environment out there. They do have the role to play with rodent control, lizard control. Lizards have their part to play. Everybody's got their part to play. You can't sanitize the great outdoors. And insecticidal soap is made with potassium salts of fatty acids, which is not the same thing as what you're using to clean your dishes with. So even though we technically call both of them soap as a general rule, it's a different product.
She also wants to know, is coyote or fox urine granules safe to deter stray cats? Safe, probably. I don't know about effective.
Yeah, that should be safe. And sometimes those things are effective, but not really long term, only temporarily. The target organism gets used to it.
Yeah.
And
But
gets
the
over it.
target organism of the stray cats might also help with your snake control. So you got to look at it. Okay, I think you already answered. What type of nematodes might work for fungus gnats?
If you Google that online,
He's looking it up. He has two screens, so he's able to do more than one thing at a time.
no, I have a nice big screen. I can do a lot of stuff
okay.
on it.
Gotcha.
Wow. I just Googled fungus gnat nematode control and very, very quickly came up on a product here. We don't want to recommend one company over another, but let's see what they have. Each box contains 2 applications of nematodes. This is fungus gnat control nematodes. Boom. So these kind of things you will almost never find at your local nursery or big box store. They're very limited and old school what they sell, but if you look online, you can find a lot of these different new materials on there.
Okay.
And these are nematodes that you put down. So yeah, Google it. It's available online.
Okay, well, that is all of our chat questions. Thank you, Bill, for joining us today with all of your great knowledge. Really hard questions, send them to wlester@ufl.edu. You want a PDF or you have any other kind of questions, email me, LillyB, 2 L's in the middle. That's where people tend to not get a hold of me when they don't put 2 L's in the middle. LillyB@hernandocounty.us. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And we hope everyone is back on Wednesday for Florida Fall Flower Power. And also every week we will have, a great class for you. So have a wonderful Florida friendly week.